Good evening, everybody. Matrix here is June 11th, and today I'd like to make a trade recap for my trades on AMD. As you can see, I played AMD today on both the short and the long, was green on both sides. Um, I traded a total of 17 tickets. You notice that I intentionally did not show my P&L here. I just wanted to show and let you guys know that I was green on the day because however much I make does not matter. Now, with this said, in tonight's recap, it's going to be a little different than my usual recaps. I want to try to implement more of a structure style recap here so that when I go through it and at the end of the day, um, it will be a little bit more organized and categorized. Please take note that these recaps are not just for you, the viewers only, but also for me as a collection of my own trades and my own playbook and journals, right? So let's get on with it. Okay, so let's take a look at the the notes here that I've made. Okay, so for this trade, I call it a positive catalyst parabolic run-up fade. The short form is PCPRF. I know it's a little bit long for the name. I'm not that much of creative person, but however, I think personally, I think giving your trades a name is very important. That will help you remember these trades when they do set up. Okay, so the big picture here, let's get on with it. The big picture is the SPY has been running a few days from a major bounce when Trump announced the US has reached an agreement with Mexico on trade talks. US will suspend Mexico tariffs indefinitely. The overall market has been a bullish run up since the announcement, so much so that the price action is getting a little bit overextended. Okay, so that's kind of like the thesis, the beginning of the thesis here. As you look here on the daily chart of the SPY, real quick, we had a quick pull down here from Trump when the SPY tried to reach the all-time highs, and that's when Trump tweeted the tariffs with China, and then some more tariffs here with Mexico, and eventually on this date, they announced that they are going to suspend. They have come to a deal with Mexico and suspend the tariffs on Mexico. So overall, the SPY has been running a few days now without a real pullback. Now, I mean, if we're not going to look at this day here, let's see if I can. Okay, so this is the day where June 10th, where I formed this thesis here on my watch list. If you go back to my watch list from last night, I talked about AMD as well, and hence why I traded it. But as you can see from this run up, basically the SPY has ran on a very tight volume, and it has yet to really pull back, and it's getting a little bit out of hand. So today, the SPY gapped up, popped and dropped, and it started the pullback action now. Okay, going back to the notes here. So that's the big picture. Fundamentals. So AMD broke out of its multi-day resistance range of $30 on June 6, 2019 on news of catalyst of Morgan Stanley. They upgraded the company from underweight to equal weight. They previously had a bearish sentiment on it. And reversing the bias is a pretty big deal. With Morgan Stanley being a tier 1 firm, the inflection point is $30. So let's take a look at that real quick. Okay, so here is the daily chart on AMD. Let's take a look at the overall chart on AMD from the beginning of the year. The stock is actually pretty strong, and from all this time, Morgan Stanley had an underweight rating on it. So coming here on the $30 mark, let's mark that out real quick. Okay, this $30 area was pretty key for AMD's daily chart. As you can see, the overall chart here, the long-term chart here, it's 30 right here, was resistance, and then it made support, and then it snapped through, and it just never got back under there. It tried once here early April with massive volume as well. I believe this was the earnings, right? and they had positive earnings, and then it hit the 30 again, and then started fading off a little. And then on this day, it tried for the 30. Now, with that said, you can clearly tell that the $30 level was very, very key. Coming in this day over here, this is the day when Morgan Stanley came out with the upgrade and caused the stock to break out with significant volume as well. So with the stock breaking out, congruently, we see the stock actually held the highs the very next day on June 7th. And then finally, let's get back to the notes. Another piece of fundamental on June 10th, Merrill Lynch reiterated their buy rating on the company amidst of the breakout action because AMD was holding so strong on this breakout, right? They came out, Merrill Lynch was going to add some more oil to the fire, and came out and reiterated the buy rating on the breakout. And Merrill Lynch is also another top firm. Okay. With that said, hold on, let's move this out of the way. With that said, going into the day, this was how AMD finished on June 10th, right? As you can see, it was very overextended on the daily chart away from the 9. We have a key inflection point here at the $30 level, okay? This was prior key resistance, now becomes support. It's also a major buy point for a lot of for the market, right? So this becomes a key support now. And from here, where all the buying happened, you see that the stock has ran quite a bit without a real pullback. Now, let's go back into the notes here real quick. Price action, let's skip that. Let's skip the ATR for now. Let's take a look at the price action. So AMD's all-time highs is at 34 to 34.20s. It hit that all-time highs on June 10th late day, making a double top, and pullback was very steep. The stock closed very weak after its initial gap up and run, and was unable to hold its opening gap up price. Okay, so the daily chart was very overextended and parabolic, moving very far away from the 9 EMA. Let's type that in real quick and save that. I save all my notes here. Okay, so talking about the 34 area, if I zoom back out and mark out the 34 area for you, on the long-term chart, I mean, overall, AMD's all-time highs here was at, let's see, zoom into this day. As you can see, it was at 34.14. Okay, so anywhere from 34 to 34.20s area, this was its all-time highs. Let's zoom out a little bit and let you see the bigger picture. Okay, so that's kind of like the long-term chart on AMD, right? And on June 10th, which was yesterday, it made a clear double top, and it showed a very clear selling signal here that it didn't like this, or it didn't have what it takes to break through this all-time highs area, as you can see from the seller's candle. Mainly because it's so overextended and all the buying volume happened here, right? So this pullback day, like today on June 11th, was pretty much expected. Going into the notes again. Oh, okay, let's finish up with this. So going into the notes, here is the 1-minute chart, right? This is today on June 11th. This is June 10th. As you can see, let's mark off the all-time highs here. Okay, so it kind of topped out at this 34.30 area yesterday, and the 34 area is right here. So let's mark that off in red. Right. So what happened on June 10th, right? That's the most important part. That's how I come up with the thesis. Okay, so June 10th, as you can see, it had Merrill Lynch came out with the reiteration, gapped up, faded, and then it ran, topped out at all-time highs, pulled back, held a little bit, and then made a very concise double top or lower high kind of action right over here. right? And then it just pretty much sold off ever since. It wasn't able to get back above the VWAP, and from the opening, I believe the opening price is at here 9:30 open 33.53. Okay, so I'm gonna mark that off because that's gonna be important. 33.53. Right there. I'm going to use the color blue. That's what I usually use for my opening price. And as you can see, the closing price, yesterday's close was at 33.23. So from its opening, it tested the all-time highs and it actually closed under the opening price. So that in itself was very, very weak. Okay. As you look on the intraday action here, I mean, shorts piled in, people started selling. It had a little bit of cover pop and it tried, and it never got back above the VWAP, and then it sold off again. After hours, it grinded back up, right? Okay, so that's the price action on the previous day. Okay, so daily chart was very overextended, moving very far away from the 9 EMA. We talked about that. So the thesis here is because the ticker was so overextended and has yet to pull back from its inflection point, which is the $30 area from Morgan Stanley upgrade. I'm looking for a breakdown of the prior day's lows and fade this breakout. This breakout, meaning the breakout of the daily chart here on this 30, fade this June 6th breakout on the theory of consolidation pullback to a near support. I'm not looking for it to give up all its gains. Now, this is very important. I put it in all caps. The thing is, this is a stock that is pretty strong. This stock did not run up on air. It ran up on a legit news catalyst, okay? And basically, the stock overall on the year is looking very strong, right? So I'm definitely not looking for it to lose all its gains like the penny stocks, pump and dumps, and come all the way back down to this area here. This is a range breakout, so as you can see, there was the stock was trading within this block, and it's basically a breakout of the range here, right? So this stock is pretty strong. I'm not looking for it to pull all the way back down into this range. So with that said, this is more of a trade that you kind of not hold all day. It's more like a move to move trade, okay? What a fade trade is, okay? So for those of you who don't know, a fade is basically a trade that goes against the main trend, right? And you're not looking for it to dump and lose all its gains, hence the fade, because a fade in itself, it's very slow and gradual. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. Let's get into the intraday. So pre-market AMD slowly grinds up to a key hold number of 34, but unable to reach. At the open, the stock puked with volume through yesterday's close, and the first retrace was pretty shallow, giving me a sense that the stock does not have the nuts to reclaim. Key support is on June 6th breakout day's highs or the close. Okay, coming over here, the average true range, this is very important, is $1.48. Okay, the institutional ownage here is 70%. This number I find very important as the institutional ownage gets higher. I think with Callus, they tend to move cleaner because a lot of these Callus are coming from the institutionals themselves, right? So this higher institutionally owned percentage to me is important. The higher, the better. If a stock has Callus, the more clean the stock will trade, in my opinion. So also, the forecasted volume is to be lower than the previous day. So let's take a look at the daily chart here real quick. On a fade trade setup, I am looking for, or I am kind of looking for volume that is lower than the previous day. Hence, for example, if you take a look at the volume bar here on this massive gap and dump here, we had a pretty nice bar of what, 97 million, right? And on this run up, I am expecting the next day to, because it's so overextended, I am expecting the volume to be lower than the previous day. And with lower volume, that means lower, people are getting less interested in it. And when people are getting less interested in it, the buying action is less likely, in my opinion. So this is exactly what happened. Lower volume forecasts is basically one of the key ingredients to a fade trade, right? If the volume becomes more than the previous day and it came down, that basically means that people are panicking, right? And it wouldn't be a fade trade, then it would be more of a dump trade, and you're shorting it for it to fail hard, okay? And you're looking for that panic. But my thesis over here, it's basically I'm looking for this major gap fill right here, and perhaps bringing it back to a major support area, which is from this day on the breakout day. Okay, so as you can see, the 32 was the highs, I believe, right? 31.98. Okay, and then also we have a key area of this closing price right here, which is let's see, the closing price is at 31.82. Okay, so let's remember these two areas real quick, and that plays into my trade recap. So okay, so that's enough talk about the daily chart. I'm gonna move the SPY out of the way. During trading time, I usually use the 30-minute chart and the 5-minute chart and the 1-minute chart. Okay, what I'm trading is, I mean, I draw my thesis on a longer time frame, on a daily time frame, and then from then my trading style, I'm usually looking for a longer type of move, perhaps a 20 to 30-minute move, if not even longer, maybe an hour. I don't really like getting in and out of trades because it makes a person very emotional. So what I want to do is try to get the best price possible and ride the most of the move, and hence that's where the average true range come in, right? If you remember, the average true range that I talked about on AMD is $1.48 over here. So basically from the open, as you can see, let's bring in the 1-minute chart. Okay, and let's move to today. Okay, so this is today. From the open, is slowly grinded up. We know that 34 was a key resistance at the open. Let's zoom in a little bit more here. At the open, you see it snap with massive volume. You see the stock snap with massive volume. I did not trade this, right? However, I think I should have, but it's okay. I see it snap hard and under its yesterday's closing price with massive volume. And here comes, and that was my thesis. As long as it stays under, then my thesis is going to fade it to the nearest support. So we have support mapped off at 32. Let me just map that off real quick here. 32. Okay, and also 32, 31.82. So let's change those colors to green real quick, knowing that these are support levels. I'm just going to be off by a penny here. It's okay. So at the open, this is exactly what I was looking for. It snapped down with massive volume, as you can see the volume bar here. Now I'm waiting for a retrace. Now on this snap down, as it retraced, I expected it. It came down under VWAP, and as it was closing into the VWAP, I mean, from here, it was a very key psychological number of $30, right? So from here, I was using the 30 now, and perhaps a little bit this 30, 23. These were my note points for resistance, right? Um, the stock could have, and notice I use the word could have, just from this bar, bounce right back up and reclaim. So once it came down, I was watching it patiently, and I was seeing it getting stuffed at the 30. So from here, I shorted, and as it came down, it worked right away. And when I saw it got bought up right here at the, the morning lows, this little wick, when I saw it was unable to break down, I basically covered half of it. And then as it was coming up and I was watching this retrace again, I saw it test VWAP. It actually broke through the 33. I saw it test VWAP and I held a little bit, but then I saw this wick coming down, right? And from here, I added back what I took off and I basically wrote it down. As it was coming down into this key support area again, or interim support area again, I paid myself a little bit right here, and as it come through, I paid myself a little bit more, and then from here, it came down. It was hitting the very psychological number of 3250, okay? And then from here on this candle, as I see, I was watching the tape, it wasn't able to continue selling into the 3250. So as this come up, I covered at 3257. So basically, that was my first trade from here to here. Okay. And then now it's just a waiting game because that was pretty much it. Now I have some sort of an idea of the morning range, basically from the open and to the lows here. So 3250 becomes a very key area for me. And I was just watching the stock range, right? As it was coming up here into the 33 area, I got short again right here, and then it broke through. My risk was very tight. It broke through this area right here. So let's mark that off. This was my stop. I got in literally 32.99, and it was coming up, and on this candle, it basically held my stop, held above my stop. So I stopped out here, and then from here, as I see, I was watching the tape at this key area here, as I see the stock unable to get above the 33.12. Okay, I was no longer seeing green prints at 33.12. Like coming up here, I was watching the tape and I was watching green prints hitting the offer, and green prints were hitting a lot. All the way up to 33.11, and then it stopped, and then it never came back to 33.12. And then when it was coming down, once it broke these little lows here, this prior low, I shorted in right here again. Okay, so I had a stop out, and then I shorted right here. My average was 32.97 to be exact, and it came down to the VWAP. As it came down and through to the VWAP, I saw this get sucked up a little bit, so I paid myself, and then I held half of it. As it came back up, let's move this arrow out of the way now. As it came back up and test this 50 EMA, I wanted to know if it will bounce up and through again. And lucky me, it didn't. Basically, the 50 EMA held it down, and then it came down some more. From here, at this area, it was very apparent to me that the stock was trending downwards. Okay, so I had this mapped out. Okay. I had this mapped out, this downtrend line mapped out. I was watching it, and then basically when it came back up, when it came down here into the 3270s, I paid myself some more as well because it was these lows right here. Okay, from here as it came back up to the VWAP, I was watching it, tested this 50 EMA again, and it failed. So I was still holding it, okay? And then eventually it snapped this area. My target of my next half, my next piece is this 3250. So when it came down to the 3250, I paid myself real quick, literally right here as it snapped down. I paid myself at the 47 mark. Okay, so that was the trade. And then I still had a quarter size left. So from the quarter, I was just holding and waiting. Okay, and then we can see I as the stock kept trading, I was extending this downtrend line, right? Eventually, the stock came down to 32. I paid myself and took everything off at 3203 to be exact, because I wasn't sure if 32 was just going to bounce hard. And if we're looking at $32 here, coming from the open at 33.50, okay, this is the opening price. 33.50 to be exact, 33.43, and then coming all the way down here into the 32. This is exactly about $1.48, $1.50. Okay, that's the average true range. So by the time it got to 32, I was very content, and that was the main trade I was looking for. So knowing that the stock has sold off its average true range, I was only looking for a fade move back down. I basically took everything off right at 32.03, and that was the trade on the short side. Coming in, knowing that these areas were key support and that the stock has already traded its average true range, I kept extending this line here, and then I saw this bounce. Okay, we had massive volume here, and then a big bounce, and then another pull, more volume again, and then you know what? Let's more volume again, and then bounce. And from here, I was getting the idea that if it can show me a higher low, because the stock has sold off a full average true range already, the thesis is try to long it back up into the VWAP, because the down move is probably much done for the day, and I'm looking for the backside. So as it was coming up, I saw the trend break, the downtrend break. However, getting up here was a little bit too far away from the true entry, in my opinion. But as you can see, there's a higher low right here. So I was paying attention to this area, and then I was paying attention to the low, and then this was a higher low. I mean, I was talking to one of the moderators at Trick Trades here at this time, and I was presenting the idea and letting him know that this is the thesis that I'm thinking about, and I was asking about his opinion. Okay, as the stock came and rejected the 50 MA, it came back down, right? And it held the 32 once again. So I really want to zoom in here on this 32 real quick. It held the 32 again and got sucked up, okay? And I also saw this trend line. So it broke the trend line, came back on a pullback. It made a higher low. So here is its key low. Here is another key low. And here is the higher low. And here is the double bottom from the higher low. Okay, as I saw, also key psychological whole number of 32 got sucked back up. I got in long. I didn't even wait for this candle, this green candle. I got in long right here. Once I got it, I saw it suck back up, and I was watching the tape again. I got in long on the average of 3204. Okay, and basically it just kept riding it. Now coming up here, I was pretty cautious at the 50 MA, but then I was also looking at the gains, and it wasn't really that much. My true idea was to ride it back up to the VWAP, right? I had a very, very tight risk, right? I could have risked right here, okay? And the reason why I risk here is because if the stock came down here and breached the 32 again, it's basically no longer a higher low from there. This would be a lower low, in comparison to this uptrend, right? So I just basically held it as it came up on this push candle here. I paid myself at the 32.25 mark because I saw its stuff, and more importantly, the 32.25 I want to mark off real quick right here. As you can see, it made a previous resistance area, or prior support now becomes resistance. So right here. So on this push, and I saw the stuff candle, it didn't pull back at all on this little grind up. So I basically took half off. And from there, I was just holding. As it topped out at the 32.30s, I was still looking for the VWAP. It came down, it held at yet another higher low. Okay, so now we have higher lows and higher lows. And I had this trend line drawn out on the uptrend. Made a higher low, held through as it came down, and then this candle right here at 12.26, it dropped below its prior lows, right? And it dropped under the 50. It's got stuffed by the 9, and it looks like it's rolling over. Even here, it looks like it was rolling over. I mean, looking at this candle right here, it was really looking like it was rolling over, and I was thinking to myself, okay, this is a red flag. Okay, it tested this trend line, made a lower low from its previous low right here. And that's when I decided, okay, this is a red flag. I need to get out soon if it's unable to bounce. So on this candle at 12.27, it snapped through, unable to bounce, and I just I just sold all my position and got out. From here, we see it reject at the 50 and then had a nice reversal, came back up. As it was coming back up, to me, I was just a tad disappointed, but then I was looking at the trade overall, and I guess it was a good trade. I mean, I had reason to exit because the stock was no longer uptrending. It broke trend and no longer making higher lows. Right, so I got out, and lo and behold, it topped out once again at 32.30 and just sold off. From here, I just didn't look back, shut it off, and that was it on the day. Okay, coming over here, looking at the day here, right? There was no way I was gonna hold this long, all the way back down here into the 32. Right, that's just silly. Once I saw the uptrend snap, that was the trade, and that was it. I mean, had I sat through all this, maybe I would have caught this double bottom again at the 32, but then I didn't want to be enslaved to the computer all day, so I went out to lunch, and basically that was it. Looking back on this trade, I mean, at the end of the day, it did come back up to VWAP, so overall the thesis worked. And that's very interesting in my opinion. How would I have done this better next time when I come up to this trade? Well, first of all, when this opening action happened and it snapped through its prior close, this was the key ingredient right here that confirms the thesis, right? So this area right here with major volume, this basically confirmed my thesis on the day. Okay, so in review, could I have shorted anywhere around here? Maybe, but I think the safer way is definitely waiting for this snap first and then come back up and retrace. And then eventually, yes, I did take it a little bit early around here, okay, because however, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with this because the retracement was so shallow. I only took very small size because it could definitely came back up to the opening area right here or right here, right? So my sizing was small, nice and safe. I had a very tight risk overall, I really, really like my trade. Okay, so that's basically the trade on this positive catalyst parabolic run of fate. Okay, overall, in my personal experience, when I see this trade setup happen, most important part, I guess, the big picture plays a little bit play a little part into whether this trade work or not. But the major thing that I'm looking for is basically parabolic run up with a catalyst, right? So and stock never pulled back. So let's take a look at the daily chart. This is the setup I was looking for. Okay, this is the setup I'm looking for. We have key resistance area. We have an overextension. We have a gap to fill, and basically it filled the gap. Okay, and that was it. If you search through my videos, I believe one of my very first videos in my YouTube channel, I talked about this setup, and this setup was taught to me by Trick Mitchell of Trick Trades, my mentor. This setup has always been stuck with me ever since day one when I started learning from Trick. I really like this setup. It has a very high probability of winning. That's why when I see it, I try to take it most of the time. And I'd like to give him credit for teaching me the setup and giving me a nice green day today on these trades here and enabling me to make this trade and be self-sufficient. So if you are into looking for a mentor or looking to learn more of these type of trades, make sure you check out my video link description below where I have a discount code to Trick Trades. And if you have any questions about this trade recap, make sure you type it in the comments, thumbs up, and share this video because it's free. I do it for all you guys, my very loyal viewers out there. I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys all bright and early tomorrow. Ciao.